Hello, my name is HQ of HQ Reacts. Welcome to my channel. Please do me a favor. Hit the like button, share the stream, and click the notification button for new content.
Hello guys. I surely meant to be here at 11 o'clock, and I was here. I was just taking a little pause. Actually, I fell asleep just listening to the video. But y'all see the thumbnail. Trump promised freedom from the drugs. Nope, he just wanted the oil, which is not breaking news, and it's not a hot take. It's for real, for real. This is what happens when you stop listening to what the Trump administration says and start watching what the Trump administration does. Because Venezuela didn't just happen. It wasn't chaos that forced someone's hand. It wasn't a split-second decision. It was a chain of choices made by a real administration with real power, operating under real incentives. And when you line those choices up in the order they were made, the story is different. Every administration talks, right? Say some shit. That's not unusual. What matters is what they treat as urgent when nobody else is watching them. Because in moments like this, words are cheap as hell. What costs money, effort, and political risk tells you what really matters to these people. Let's be clear about something right away. This is not a defense of Maduro's government. Venezuela was not a healthy democracy, so we ain't defending that. There was corruption, repression, deep suffering long before the United States got involved. Still is. People are hurting. We're hurting, are hurting. That's real, but acknowledging that doesn't mean we shut our brains off about what is really going on. Two things can be true at the same time. A government can be bad, and foreign intervention can still be exploitative, which this one is. History is full of examples where both are true all at once. What the Trump administration told the public was that this was about drugs, about stability, about restoring democracy, about helping Venezuelans. Those words sound familiar because they're always the words that get used. And that's exactly why they deserve scrutiny. If this had been about freeing the Venezuelan people, there's certain things you would expect to see immediately, not eventually. Yeah, they're going to cut me for that. You just got to watch. They definitely will cut me for the music. It was a good thing. Immediately, this is what we saw. A clear political transition. Venezuelans regain power over their own institution. A timeline for elections. Transparency around money and resources. Relief reaching ordinary people. When those things didn't happen, that's not a detail to gloss over. That is the story. Of course, it was joy because Maduro was an ass. Okay. Now, here's where the oil reality really matters. And this is where a lot of people get misled about this the release of the Venezuelan people. When the Trump administration talked about the U.S. companies fixing Venezuela's oil industry, that wasn't a small promise. Experts who actually work in energy say just stabilizing Venezuelan crumbling oil infrastructure will cost about $50 to $60 million over years just to stop the bleeding, to rebuild and modernize it so it produces at meaningful levels again. We're talking about $100 billion or more, possibly far higher if you're trying to restore anything close to pre-production. But listen, listen.
Trump has sold $500 million of Venezuelan oil, and the money is being held in a Qatari bank account, a bank in Qatar. They are alleging that Qatar is a neutral location where the money can flow freely under American control and will not be subject to seizure. I just have to point out that if the removal of Maduro and the annexation of Venezuela was completely legal and justified, why would you be worried about the money being seized? If you did the right thing and you're not causing a conflict, why would y'all be worried about the money being seized? Why would that even be a priority? Why is that money not going straight to the U.S. Treasury? Why would that go to a private account in Qatar? This smells of corruption on every level. Why wouldn't this money come back? And I'm just waiting to see how Fox News and MAGA are going to try to say that this is going to make us great. This money isn't even coming back to us. It's not even coming into our bank accounts. It's not going into our economy. It's hanging out in a private account in Qatar. I don't even have jokes to make. Y'all have a good night.
I'm about to share breaking news.
So, let's start with the public reaction when all this started to unfold. Yet again.
Don't you think it's interesting that the Venezuela thing didn't result in a big spike for the military? Usually there's a rally around the flag.
Yeah, it didn't. We kind of expected that there would be. It just, I think because it was over and done so quickly. It's not really over and done,
right?
But that was the image that
but
we
the
got.
Splashy part was over and done quickly, right?
Right.
Okay.
It felt more like the Iran strikes, where we went in and bombed, and it was over.
Yep.
It's not over, in truth. In the long term, we're not done with Venezuela, of course. But so this is from CNN's poll. We got a lot of new polling this week.
Yeah, we sure did.
A lot about Venezuela, a lot about ICE, a lot about Greenland. But this shows what people think the military action in Venezuela was about. And a large majority of people say that Venezuelan oil was a major factor in.
They happen to be right.
They happen to be right, although Trump's calculus is totally fucking wrong.
Correct.
He does not understand that if you flood the market with Venezuelan oil, you will drop the price.
Ding, ding, ding.
The oil companies in the United States do not want to drop the price. They would like to keep the price stable. 51% say it's about a major factor is demonstrating America's military power. 43% say reducing drug trafficking. Of course, that's also ridiculous because most drugs do not actually come out of Venezuela.
Correct.
Removing an authoritarian leader, that I think is reasonable with, that sort of older Republican crowd. I think that has a sort of a boost there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Bringing Maduro to stand trial in the U.S., yeah, I mean, that's going to be a long and drawn-out process. And improving the lives of Venezuelan people, most people don't say that's a big factor. Although Trump has said that, Trump and the administration are saying that a lot of this is about, helping Venezuelans. Of course, that's not true.
No.
What's seen here isn't about polling mechanics. It's about legitimacy. So when people believe a government's action is justified, even if they disagree on this poll, there's usually a moment where they emotionally accept it as serious. That moment did not happen. This intervention in Venezuela didn't feel like a defense for us. It didn't feel like a rescue for us. It felt administrative because everybody knew it was about the oil, like something being processed rather than something being weighed, right? That matters because legitimacy is emotional before it's intellectual. People decided whether something felt right long before they analyzed or accepted or seen it, and here the feeling about Venezuela is off. That tells us people sensed a mismatch between the scale of the action and the story we were told about it. When that happens, the trust is eroding in the storyteller. This wasn't indifference, or it was just discomfort that we had with this president and what they did. Okay. This is what the poll is telling them.
Not true at all. If it was about helping Venezuelans, folks, they would have not left the Maduro government in charge without Maduro.
Right.
Because all the people that were screaming for years in South Florida, we have to liberate the people of Venezuela from the evil Chavistas and the Maduro regime. We left them in charge of the country.
They're still there.
I talked to somebody who's from the energy industry. I'm going to say it that way. Who knows this stuff very well. Supporter and friend. I hear my granddaughter.
She's
but I talked to somebody from the energy industry who spoke to someone who was in the White House discussions.
Sure.
And what Trump is spinning, that they were all ready to go down there and spend hundreds of billions of dollars. This person said to me, he goes, literally the same woman who was in charge of expropriating Conoco the last time we were down there, who stole their oil rigs and their refineries and their product, is now the woman in charge of the entire country, and we're not going to effing touch it.
Nope, it's functionally not changed in any way. And I think in some, what that polling shows is that Americans see through all the BS that the administration is putting out.
Yeah.
And the oil stuff is obviously BS, but people do understand why Trump did it.
He's not hiding. He's not tricking anybody by thinking that, and he's not really even trying that hard, that this is the promotion of democracy or the liberation of the long-suffering Venezuelan people.
Yeah.
He's fine with them continuing to be in a communist slave state and a police.
He's totally okay with it.
Fine with that. He would like that here.
So everybody understands what we're looking at. Everybody understands where it's at. So this polling supports the fact that everybody was okay with him overthrowing another government, with him going in there, taking Maduro, taking the oil because you knew what he was doing, because most people accept the fact that Donald Trump is a corrupt president. Most people accept that fact. That's why it's not a big deal. It's not that big of a deal. Okay. People are in disbelief, but they're not confused. Don't get it confused. We understand why you went over there and got that oil. Okay. Because that's the kind of person and president that we got. Okay. Everything goes through that. We understand exactly what this president did. Okay. On a base level, most people understand what your president is. We understand what this president is. That's basically what they're saying. And hey, y'all fine with that. They fine with that. Ain't nobody fighting about no regime staying in charge. Ain't nobody fighting about that. Because y'all understand exactly what this president is and what he has done. Exactly.
Is insisting that the main reason he's interested in Venezuela, the main reason the US is kind of looking at tankers off the coast of Venezuela comes back to drugs, the trade, the smuggling of illegal drugs out of Venezuela. But what if it's not just that? Maybe there's something else going on. What if it's partly about oil? Now, on the surface, you might be thinking, why does America even need Venezuelan oil? And I can kind of understand your point, because if you look at just total oil production, look, this is up until 2005, the US was there, Venezuela was there, Saudi Arabia was there. But as you probably know, since then, everything has changed. Look, American output has gone through the roof, way above Saudi Arabia. And Venezuela has gone basically to the floor. And that's kind of post-Chavez, Maduro. They're one of the minnows now, and I think 21st biggest producer in the world. So again, that question, why should America care? Well, in the US, that big rise is largely down to this. It's down to the shale revolution. So you've got fracking all around the US producing extraordinary amounts of crude oil. And here's where we get to the interesting bit. Because when you're thinking about crude oil, maybe you're just thinking about, well, look, barrels of oil. It's all the same, isn't it? Well, actually, no. So if you kind of look at crude oil, there are various different types of crude in different parts of the world. There's actually kind of various different ways you can categorize it. But one way you can look at it is look at the kind of density. So you're basically looking at how thick that crude is. And when I say thick, I mean literally how thick. This is showing you global production broken down by the density of that oil. And so you've got the kind of medium stuff. And this is probably, if you've got kind of image in your mind of what crude oil looks like, it's a bit like this, it's kind of black, but it's not too viscous, it flows around. But there's other stuff as well. So this is light crude. And it kind of almost looks like a smoothie, doesn't it? And that's the same stuff. This is still crude oil, but down to the kind of geological and the biological conditions in the ground when it was being formed, hundreds of millions of years ago, it comes out looking a bit different. And so that's light. You've also got heavy stuff. And it's kind of relatively small in global production. But this is gloopy, super viscous stuff, heavy oil. So heavy, medium, light. Remember that. And remember also, the key thing here is you get it out of the ground, it may look like that, but ultimately you still need it to go into, someone's car, or indeed, be turned into chemicals. Basically, you need to process it. And that processing, that happens in places like this, in refineries. And there are refineries all over the world, of course. There are refineries all over the US as well. There's kind of more than 100 of them. And if we kind of look at where those refineries are, well, so there's some in California. So the history in America, actually, historically, a lot of the early Californian oil, that was the heavy, gloopy stuff. And if you look at kind of some of the refineries in America, so here are some of the refineries. There's one in LA there. These are the 10 biggest. You've got some up here around kind of towards Canada. That we'll kind of come to that in a second. But a lot of them are down there, kind of Texas, Louisiana, on the coast.
See, so this is where we don't need their oil argument falls apart. Oil isn't just oil. Infrastructure is built for specific inputs, and those systems don't care about political talking points. When people say the U.S. is energy independent, they're skipping over how energy actually works on the ground or made. This isn't about abundance, it's about compatibility in Venezuela.
And here's the critical thing. These refineries are primarily set up for heavy oil, for taking that gloopy stuff and turning it into gasoline and all of the other different products. But here's where things get interesting. And remember that chart I showed you a moment ago, the one which showed kind of shale oil and how it kind of went through the roof? The oil that's generally produced with shale oil, the fracking oil, that comes out of the ground mostly in the light form. So it's the smoothie. It's sometimes actually even clear. It comes out of the ground clear rather than black. And that's the majority of American production right now. Shale oil tends to be light stuff. And actually, that's kind of going back 10 years. Look at where we are now. Look at those bars. In the last few years, the amount of light oil being produced in the US has gone up and up and up, and the amount of kind of heavy stuff has gone down. But back to those refineries. They need to be fed. If America's going to have gasoline, it needs to feed those refineries with heavy oil. So if you look at the kind of imports coming into America in recent years, even though America is producing so much oil, more oil than it ever produced before, it still needs to suck in loads of oil from overseas. And the type of oil we're talking about, it used to be, it's mostly heavy crude. It used to be only 12%. So only 12% of imports were heavy, gloopy crude. Now, it's about 70%. So 70% of the oil coming into America, which it needs to basically keep its economy going, is heavy crude. And where does heavy crude come from? Well, here are some of the big countries where you find most of it. It's Canada and Venezuela. There's one other I'll come to in a second, which we'll come back to. But it's Canada and it's Venezuela where you get most of this heavy crude oil, which is why, about to think about where those refineries are, they're mostly set up kind of, you've got some in the north there to get the heavy oil coming out of Canada, and you've got some around the kind of Louisiana and elsewhere and Texas to get that heavy oil that comes in from Venezuela. That was
right. So here's the plain language version. Many of those refineries that were built decades ago to process that heavy, thick shit. Much of the oil produced in the United States is light or that green stuff. Those two things do not line up. Fixing that mismatch would cost billions and billions of dollars and takes years and years. So instead of rebuilding refineries, the system looks for heavy crude oil. That's why Venezuela matters, not morally, mechanically. This isn't about conspiracy. It's economics meeting the infrastructure that we have.
kind of the way they were set up. And it's really expensive to rebuild these things. You can't just chuck out a refinery very easily overnight. Some came from Mexico and the Gulf of Mexico as well, and that was pretty heavy too. So that's the picture in America. And the upshot is, even though America is producing more and more oil, the imports, this is showing you imports of oil into America, are still really high. And if you break down those imports by the country that stuff is coming from, well, there's Venezuela. And it used to be a decent slug, actually more coming from Venezuela just about than from Canada, just at the turn of the millennium. But now look at what's happened since. Right now, Canada has gone from 15% of all of the US imports of oil to 61%. 61%. And Venezuela is basically next to nothing. But here's what's tantalizing, and here's the reason I think that a lot of people are looking towards Venezuela and thinking, well, there's more to this than just drugs. Look at total oil reserves around the world. The higher these bars are, the more oil there is in the ground, so that hasn't yet been taken out of the ground. So there you've got Saudi, Iran, Iraq, all of the usual suspects. But the biggest of all, and this is according to various different sources, the biggest of all is Venezuela. And what's that oil? It's the heavy, tarry stuff that you might well want to put into those American refineries. And there is really only one other place in the world that has a kind of serious amount of heavy oil other than Canada and Venezuela. And lo and behold, guess where that is? It's Russia. All of which is to say, you know, it matters what kind of oil America needs. It's worth just delving into these kind of nuances because that helps you understand a little bit more about the backstory of geopolitics. Now,
okay. So once you understand that Venezuela stops being so mysterious, it becomes obvious why we took it. It sits on massive reserves of exactly what the U.S. infrastructure is needed. At this point, the people living there become secondary. They are secondary. And I would almost say inconsequential. become secondary to the resources beneath their feet. That's not ideology, that's history repeating itself. But it is what it is. Hold on. Let's listen. Hold on, momento. Give me some. Grace.
Its first sale of Venezuelan oil following the capture of President Nicolas Maduro. And while not much is known about the sale itself yet, we do know where that money is being kept, and it has very many people concerned. So according to an administration official, the first sale of oil was valued at $500 million, and additional sales are expected to be made soon. So the details about the first oil sale were unclear on Wednesday, but in a statement, White House spokesperson Taylor Rogers said that President Trump's team is facilitating positive, ongoing discussions with oil companies that are ready and willing to make unprecedented investments to restore Venezuela's oil infrastructure. So Trump has previously met with U.S. energy executives on Friday to discuss the administration's plans to capitalize on the oil that they seized. During this meeting, Trump stated the oil industry would need to invest at least $100 billion into rebuilding the country's energy sector in Venezuela. But many executives at the meeting actually showed some skepticism, including ExxonMobil CEO Darren Woods. Take a look.
With respect to Venezuela in particular, we have a very long history in Venezuela. In fact, we first got into Venezuela back in 1940s. We've had our assets seized there twice. And so you can imagine to re-enter a third time would require some pretty significant changes from what we've historically seen here and what is currently the state. If we look at the legal and commercial constructs and frameworks in place today in Venezuela, today it's uninvestable. And so significant changes have to be made to those commercial frameworks, the legal system. There has to be durable investment protections, and there has to be a change to the hydrocarbon laws in the country.
Well, executives like Woods and also ConocoPhillips CEO Ryan Phillips, they made it very clear that they wanted deep reforms and political stability in Venezuela before they look into making any kind of real investments in the country, which is very understandable. But as you can see, Donald Trump wanted to make a quick deal because that's what he does. He's a deal maker, you guys. So now, according to an administration official who spoke to Semafor, the interim leadership in Venezuela, led by former Maduro #2 Delcy Rodriguez, has fully cooperated since the U.S.-Venezuelan energy deal was announced last week, adding that the U.S. has leveraged through sanctions and oil sales. But there is concern with where the money is actually going. So revenue from the oil sales is currently being held in bank accounts controlled by the U.S. government, as indicated in Friday's order, according to the administration official. The main account, according to a second senior administration official, is located in Qatar. The second official described Qatar as a neutral location where money can flow freely with U.S. approval and without risk of seizure. Trump's order noted that at least some of the revenue would be held in U.S. Treasury accounts. It is unclear who the Trump administration believes who would try to seize the cash, or why money being in Qatar would be less of a seizure risk than a bank account in the United States.
Because Donald Trump don't plan to give all that money to the United States, of course. Of course. The money moved to Qatar because that's the most important thing. Before you do anything, before we do freedom, before we give people freedom, before we give them a new government, before we do any of those things, we don't care about them. We care about that money. If the Trump administration's priority had been freedom or freeing American people from drugs, the first moves would have been centered around governing Venezuela. They weren't centered around governing Venezuela. Instead, they moved to center themselves around the money. The money and oil are the priorities. That's it. People just happen to live in Venezuela. Everything else doesn't mean anything. If you take a look at that interview with, what's his name? Marco, you'll understand what I mean.
But as you can imagine, the idea of using an offshore account has raised some red flags. There is no basis in law for a president to set up an offshore account that he controls so that he can sell assets seized by the American military. That is precisely a move that a corrupt politician would be attracted to. And that was from Senator Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts. And remember, Qatar and the Trump family are very, very close. And that may become relevant later on in our show tonight. We'll have to see. We're keeping an eye out for some breaking news. But back in May, the royal family gifted Trump a $400 million plane after securing a deal with the Trump family to build a golf resort in Qatar. That seems like a lot of money for a golf resort. But, you know, that this is the world that we live in, and this is our very corrupt president that we have elected twice. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent tried, emphasis on tried, to be a bit more transparent, telling the Economic Club of Minnesota that the Treasury Department will oversee the accounts and then, at the direction of Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, be in charge of the disbursement that goes back into Venezuela. The Treasury's role will be making sure the funds get to the proper place. We're the bankers here. We don't direct the funds. Good. Waz, that doesn't make me feel good about a lot of what's happening, but you made the allusion earlier in the show to 9/11 and the invasion of Iraq that followed that. This all feels very much in line with that, which is something that a lot of us said from the very beginning.
I think there's a lot of things folks need to remember here. One, you know, this idea that the bank needs to be in Qatar for some security reason is absurd. We have some of the most secure, we are the banking system of the world. Like it's all based on our stuff. So this idea that we would need to have accounts in Qatar is quite ridiculous. And, you know, more to the point about, because I've seen a lot of these right-wing idiots in their commentary about Venezuela, like, oh, we're going to get cheap oil. Who is we? Like, American consumers are not getting cheap oil. Folks need to always remember when it comes to oil and our prices that we pay. We have a ton of oil in America, but what that also means is we have American producers, American companies who want to do what, Yaz? Make profits. It's not in their interest for oil to become dirt cheap for Americans.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is going to be a bait and switch. It's going to be interesting to find out who benefits the most from this deal that they seem to be putting through. It definitely wasn't the Venezuelan people. We do know that.
In regards to the Venezuelan situation, everything seems to be pretty much the same. There's this tense calmness in the environment. The bad guys still in power. Although Maduro was removed, you still have, it seems to be a lot of friction internally. There's two main guys.
They ain't removing the people that were already there. They ain't removing those people. The second in command and all of those bad guys that were under Maduro doing Maduro's bidding are still in charge. Why are they still in charge? Why is it that Machado lady who had the Nobel Peace Prize, why is it that she went to the White House to ask the president to like put her in charge and he ain't doing it? Why is that? Because they don't care who is in charge. They only care about the oil, being in charge of the oil. Y'all, them people can run into the ground for all they care. Them Venezuelan people can go fly for all this administration care.
There are still with $25 million rewards for their arrest, Diosdado Cabello and Padrino Lopez. And those two guys are still there, although they're in the hiding. Nobody has seen them much talking.
Y'all wild. This some dumb shit. Look at the dumb shit that we hear. Venezuela is free from a dictator. His second in charge is still there, and everybody else underneath him is still there, goofy, which means there ain't no regime change. Man, y'all just be talking. Everybody is still there. The same people that have been torturing the Venezuelan people from the beginning are still there. You just got rid of the one top guy. The rest of them are still there. That's why you goofy. Shut your ass up.
They're still there. They have only released around less than 20 political prisoners out of thousands. And at the same time, President Trump continued promoting meetings with oil companies to invest. Secretary of State Marco Rubio continued furthering meetings, and I'm pretty sure they're aware of this. But historically, we have learned that you cannot trust this guy. So Delcy Rodriguez, who is the active president, again, from the bad guys, it seems that she doesn't have the control of the government, because there's no reason why after a week that this has been announced that the political prisoners should be released, they're still in jail and their family members still waiting on it. We don't know. And at the same time, the United States government sent a warning to all citizens in Venezuela, to U.S. citizens in Venezuela, to get away from that. So we don't know if there's going to be another surprising arrest, but the situation is still not fixed, and there's a lot of same chaos that it was with Maduro still here, but even worse, because now, I wouldn't say worse, but it would be very confusing. So I'm pretty sure that President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio are pretty aware of this, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that how the situation is still going on. And so it sees like there's several things happening in parallel, but the situation for the Venezuelans still living there in the country is still pretty much the same. And the 8 million Venezuelans who are outside Venezuela still cannot travel there.
And it's still the same. There was nothing that changed when everything occurred. Trump just went in to get the oil. They don't care about the people. They don't care anything about the people. That was the objection that most of us have. Most of us knew what time it was. It were only goofies who didn't understand that the president had no intention of freeing the people. We don't need the oil. So you went into Venezuela and you made it worse. And you only went into Venezuela to get the oil for yourself. That's why you sent it to Qatar, the money to Qatar, or the oil to Qatar to get money from Qatar.
In any of that. So again, we're expecting to see what happens next. Okay, take care. God bless.
So Trump took the money from the sale of the oil that he took from Venezuela, and he's hiding it in a bank in Qatar. I think it's about $500 million, but we have no idea because he won't share that information with us. We have no idea what he's going to be doing with it, and we also have no idea what the Qatar banks will be doing with it while he decides. He's using the proceeds from a U.S. military action without the approval of Congress. That's not only against the law, it's against our Constitution. Every single day, our Constitution is being destroyed because every time he breaks a law and nobody holds him accountable, he just keeps doing it again. The Department of Justice, the Supreme Court of the United States, and every single coward Republican in Congress keeps giving him more and more power every day. He's destroying our country and our Constitution, all while he and his family get richer and richer. And this time, he used our military. He used the lives of our service members to enrich himself. And Republicans in Congress don't care. They have no respect for our military. And he's going to try to use them again in Greenland and everywhere else that he feels like it. Cuba, Mexico, Colombia. What's next?
We have some news right now. Venezuela is now ordering the capture and arrest of any individual who helped the United States of America in the strikes on Venezuela and the abduction of Nicolas Maduro. This was first reported by Reuters and really confirms where the Venezuelan government, the interim government, is heading. They are trying to capture anyone associated with the capture of Nicolas Maduro, who actually appeared in court today and pled not guilty to a 4-count indictment. Now, I will say there are a lot of differences between what is being said publicly and what is happening behind the scenes. So behind the scenes, the current government led by Delcy Rodriguez, who was actually sworn in as an interim president today, could very well be cooperating with the White House and the United States. We don't know. But publicly, at least, the Venezuelan government wants to capture anyone who has been associated with the United States and the country. I'll continue to provide you updates as we get more information, so follow along for all the news you need to know about.
Hi, I'm Kylie. Here are 3 things that you need to know that the United States has done in Venezuela that is not airing in American media. Number 1, the American attack in Venezuela did not kill 0 citizens. It didn't even kill 40 people. It killed 80 people. And that number is not being reported in any Western media whatsoever. Number 2, they already appointed an interim president, and guess who it is? Maduro's vice president. Americans are saying, oh yes, we are liberating Venezuelans from this evil regime. Then why would you appoint the second in command to now be first in command? Right, because they don't give a shit about Venezuelans. Not to mention the 2024 election was stolen and Eduardo Gonzalez was the rightful winner, and yet the United States will not recognize that. Once again, if they actually cared about democracy, they would put the person who actually won the election in power, but they are not doing that because, say it with me, it's not about democracy. It's about natural resources and geopolitics. And number 3, the U.S. said it will continue to attack Venezuela if people do not cooperate. Yes, they have threatened to use even more force to maintain their control over this territory because it is an act of imperialism, a violation of international law, which other countries should be calling out right now.
New government records obtained by Wired proves that the Trump administration has been blatantly inventing their claims about Venezuela's Tren de Aragua being some tightly organized terrorist group tied to President Nicolas Maduro and operating inside the U.S., and that alone changes everything that happened afterwards.
Maduro uses foreign terrorist organizations, TDA, to bring deadly drugs and violence into our country.
Hundreds of documents obtained through public records requests by Wired show that throughout all of last year, U.S. agencies struggled with the basic question whether Tren de Aragua even functioned as an organized group inside of the U.S. at all. Far from uncovering a coordinated national security threat, officials repeatedly admitted that they lacked clear answers about how the group operated, who led it, or whether crimes linked to its name were connected in any meaningful way. Publicly, senior officials warned of invasion, narco-terrorism, and foreign-directed violence.
Tren de Aragua. They say it's the worst gang in the world. It makes our gangs look like little sweethearts. It makes our gangs, you want to take them out to dinner. They're so nice. They cut off the fingers of people.
Privately, reports circulated across law enforcement and intelligence offices describing something much smaller and less structured. Loose crews acting independently, chasing money rather than ideology. The crimes attributed to them were familiar and low level, talking retail theft, ATM scams, delivery app fraud, and small-scale drug sales without any signs of central planning or political purpose. In March of last year, President Donald Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act, claiming that the group had thousands of members who had illegally entered the U.S. and were acting on behalf of the Venezuelan government. But an internal Border Patrol assessment found that those numbers were not based on confirmed detections. Instead, they relied on rough estimates and assumptions, not direct evidence. Attorney General Pam Bondi echoed the administration's claims in media appearances, describing TDA as a foreign arm of the Maduro regime with a command structure operating on U.S. soil.
The raid she's talking about in Chicago was a brilliantly executed raid against a Tren de Aragua complex filled with TDA terrorists. It was one of
Yet internal records show that even after the State Department labeled TDA a foreign terrorist organization, officials acknowledged large blind spots in what they actually knew. Those gaps were serious enough that intelligence managers issued a nationwide order instructing analysts to urgently figure out basic facts: how the group made money, whether it had access to serious weapons, and whether anybody abroad was directing activity inside of the U.S. Drug task forces reached similar conclusions. Regional reports in California, Texas, and Oklahoma said that the group did not meet the legal definition of a drug trafficking organization. They found no clear leaders, no assigned roles, and no evidence that activity in one state was coordinated with activity in another. CBP took a more aggressive tone when producing reports that ranked Tren de Aragua among the world's most capable terrorist groups. But even those assessments admitted that they were built on some judgment calls rather than proof, really blurring the line between assumptions and facts, reality. Over nearly 2 years, CBP identified just 83 confirmed TDA members at the border. To reach claims of thousands, analysts assumed that a tiny fraction of Venezuelan migrants must have been affiliated. A leap that internal documents show could not be verified, no matter how desperately they tried. Inside the FBI, the Bureau described TDA as less sophisticated than other South American theft groups, relying on spontaneous crimes rather than careful planning. Field reports linked the group to isolated retail thefts and occasional violence, but found no evidence of nationwide coordination or some broader security threat. Still, public messaging from top officials went on. TDA was framed as a terrorist force embedded in U.S. cities, helping justify expanded enforcement operations, mass arrests, and threats to cut federal funding to cities, being accused of being too lenient. A classified intelligence assessment later concluded that there was zero evidence that the Venezuelan government directed the group. That finding shared by most U.S. intelligence agencies agencies was dismissed by administration officials as politically motivated. These records are ginormous. They show a striking divide, a confident public narrative of invasion and terrorism, and a private paper trail full of uncertainty. And behind the rhetoric, officials are still trying to answer the most basic questions about who Tren de Aragua even is, and whether the threat described to the public actually existed in the way that leaders claimed. The answer that we have now is no, it doesn't.
But now, as I said, the big development this moment is that the vice president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, has just appeared on camera for the first time and said she's in charge, flanked by military officials and other power brokers in Venezuela, calling Maduro's capture a kidnapping, demanding his immediate release, and saying that Venezuela will not be a colony of the United States. A defiant move, given that Trump has said his team's running the country and that she's doing everything they want.
We have a major breaking news update in the ongoing story of Donald Trump's unilateral and unconstitutional regime change war in Venezuela. And that update is this. Mere hours after both Trump and Marco Rubio publicly boasted that the new interim leader of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro's vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, would simply roll over for Trump and do whatever Trump ordered her to do, serving as Trump's puppet. Well, now she is publicly giving Trump the finger and humiliating him and defying him, suggesting that Venezuela will not cooperate the way that Trump says, which means the odds of Trump using military intervention again, potentially even invading and occupying Venezuela with American soldiers, American boots on the ground, the odds of that have radically increased. But before we unpack all of that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, folks, to unpack this, I got to start with reminding you about what Trump said just a few hours ago about Venezuela's interim leader.
Weren't going to back Machado to come back and be the opposition leader in your Fox and Friends interview. And then you also mentioned the vice president of Venezuela. Are you going to work with the vice president of Venezuela, or how do you foresee the relationship
Well,
going?
I understand she was just sworn in, but she was, as you know, picked by Maduro. So Marco's working on that directly. Just had a conversation with her, and she's essentially willing to do what we think is necessary to make Venezuela great again. Very simple.
How is she willing to do what makes Venezuela great? And she's a part of the regime that was suppressing and oppressing the people that were there. Are y'all willing to make a change to the country? Are y'all willing to make a change to the country so that the people are not oppressed? Why wouldn't you just overthrow the whole government and get that one lady who had the Nobel Peace Prize in there, and she bring in her good people like she's supposed to? Why is that? We wondered, why is that the two main people that are left in charge, the two men, why is it that you would leave those two in charge when we have bounties on their head? The United States has bounties on two of those people who lead Venezuela. We have two bounties on their head. Why would you leave those people in charge? Because you have no intention of taking them away, because you have no intention of freeing the people. You just want to free the oil.
We're going to back Machado.
So he says whatever we think is necessary, she's just going to do what she's told. And then he doubled down on it later in the same press conference, and he used even more degrading language to describe the nature of their dynamic.
Are you saying that Secretary Hegseth and Rubio are going to be running Venezuela, and will you be sending in U.S. military
They're
troops
going
to
to be a
provide?
team that's working with the people of Venezuela to make sure that we have Venezuela right. Because for us to just leave, who's going to take over? I mean, there is nobody to take over. You have a vice president who's been appointed by Maduro, and right now she's the vice president.
Why? What do you mean there's nobody to take over? They had an election a couple months ago, and then there was a winner who won the election by a landslide. At least that's my understanding. So why is it that y'all won't overthrow them and then get the person who won the election in charge where he's supposed to be? Why you won't do that?
And she's, I guess, the president. She was sworn as president just a little while ago. She had a long conversation with Marco, and she said, we'll do whatever you need. I think she was quite gracious, but she really doesn't have a choice. We're going to have this done right. We're not going to just do this with Maduro, then leave like everybody else leave. And
wait a minute, hold on. Ain't that what y'all did? Ain't that what y'all did? Ain't that what y'all did? Y'all had, ain't that what y'all did? Y'all just abandoned them for the oil, for the money. What y'all gonna do with that country?
Say, let it go to hell.
So he says she doesn't have a choice. And again,
Trump just approved the sale of Venezuelan oil.
Oh, yes, he did. And guess who it went to?
Who?
A mega Trump donor on the first deal.
The first one? So what is this supposed to be about? Energy security?
I mean, sure. If energy security means securing your donor's profit, it's literally foreign policy, but treated like a loyalty rewards program.
They're not even hiding it.
Why would he? It's Trump.
Secretary of State Rubio really bristled when I asked him why they didn't arrest the Minister of the Interior, Diosdado Cabello, who remains in power. You have been very clear in your statements that you think the United States should arrest him. We went back and looked. CBS Miami's Jim DeFede reported in 2017 that Cabello had tried to assassinate Senator Rubio. Can you help people understand why perhaps people in Florida should be concerned, or other Americans, about this man remaining in control of security forces?
Well, you know, I know that Diosdado is probably worse than Maduro and worse than Delcy. They're all Alibaba on the 40 feet.
So why they leaving him in charge? So why they ain't kicked him out so that they can put somebody else in? So why they leaving that bad guy in charge? That bad lady in charge?
Let's don't make any, let's make sure for your international audience that, but I am very reassured the fact that we have taken the oil and the resources away from them, that Diosdado Cabello, who is a thief, I repeat, does not want to fall into where Maduro has fallen into, and they will cooperate, and somehow, because we have created this new type of model, that they will work with us. They do not have their resources. Now they know that we're going to go into this recovery, and that somehow they are going to definitely participate and work with the American forces. They know better. And like I said, this is impressive what's happening, because we have not seen this before in the 250 years of history. And Diosdado, I repeat, is definitely someone who was indicted. And one of the sources, I have some sources that say that we were not able to locate him. But at this hour, I would say that everything is really falling into place.
I think what we are seeing is a real attempt to institute the kind of Putinization of the United States of America, if you will, in that what Trump did in Venezuela was not to overturn a government in order to install a democratically elected leader or an opposition leader, or even really to hurt the party in power, because he left that party in power. What we saw was him extracting a leader almost as a threat to those remaining behind to say, give me a cut or I'm going to do something even worse. And if you think about it that way, and you think about the threats against Mexico and the threats against Colombia and the threats against Cuba and even the threats against Greenland, it certainly looks as if what he is saying is not just America is going to be the country controlling the Western Hemisphere, but also the way to get along with the United States is not to spread democracy or public health or all the things that we have tended to emphasize in the past. The way to get along with the United States is to give expletive to the president, whatever he wants, give crap to the president, and then he'll back off. And that is, that is actually slightly different than the United States is going to become a colonial power. That is a personalized power that looks very much like Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, very much so. Come on in there. Uno moment. Oh, yeah, hold on. I always forget to do that. This is the top Republican dude, smart dude, knows everything, and he's a Republican. So he's probably one of those only Republicans I listen to, Steve Schmidt.
Who exactly is running Venezuela this morning? According to Donald Trump, it's the United States. According to Little Marco, it's the Venezuelans. According to Nicolas Maduro's vice president, a dyed-in-the-wool socialist who blamed his abduction on the Jews, it's her. According to the men with guns, it's them. But maybe it's me from my secret jungle location. It's January the 5th, Monday. Happy New Year. This is The Warning. America is at war in South America. 150 planes from 22 bases took off. Donald Trump risked the lives of America's most elite commandos to arrest the president of Venezuela and bring him to the United States. Let's examine the life cycle. We obliterate the speedboats in the Southern Caribbean. We don't arrest the low-grade drug traffickers, alleged. We just kill them. And if there's a shipwreck survivor, we don't arrest them. We don't bring them to the United States. We murder them, or we let them go. Now, it goes without saying, some presidents are luckier than others. How do you explain the president of Honduras released from federal custody with a Trump pardon, a narco trafficker, while the most elite commandos in the American arsenal, their lives are risked to go arrest another alleged drug trafficker? It doesn't make a lot of sense. One thing is certainly true. Donald Trump did not care about the lives of the men he ordered into harm's way for his reality show episode. Not at all. He risked their lives for sound bites, for cable TV hits. What has been accomplished? There is nothing but incoherence. Here's Donald.
There's about 17 billion worth of oil reserves in Venezuela. Is that going to be?
You mean trillion?
And is that going to be
Did you
something?
say billion or trillion?
I said billion.
You said 17 billion? It's much more than that.
Okay, so what is going to happen to those reserves?
Well, we're going to run everything. We're going to run it, fix it. We'll have elections at the right time. The main thing you have to fix, it's a broken country. There's no money. There's inflation. Like we would have had, if I didn't win this election, we would have been Venezuela on steroids. As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country. And we are ready to stage a second and much larger attack if we need to do so. So we were prepared to do a second wave if we needed to do so. We actually assumed that a second wave would be necessary, but now it's probably not.
Here's little Marco.
How soon will elections be held? Within 30 days, Mr. Secretary?
How soon will elections be held, Mrs. How soon will elections be held? Marco looked like he a deer in headlights. He don't know nothing about no damn elections. What elections? They ain't planning to have no elections. They not planning to do nothing with that country. Look at the astonishment that he got on his face and what he says for that question. Say it again, girl. What does he say?
Would be necessary, but now it's probably not.
Here's little Marco.
How soon will elections be held? Within 30 days, Mr. Secretary?
Elections? Or
He said elections? What the hell are you talking about? Elections? What elections? They don't have no plan for Venezuela.
look, this is a country that's been governed by this regime now for 14 or 15 years. The elections should have happened a long time ago. The elections did happen. They lost them, and they didn't count the votes, or they refused to count the votes, and everyone knows it. So all of that, I think, is premature at this point. There's a lot of work to be done here. Right now, what we are focused in, let's be realistic here, what we are focused on right now is all of the problems we had with when Maduro was there. We still have those problems in terms of them needing to be addressed. We are going to give people an opportunity to address those challenges.
Let me ask the question again. What is the legal authority for the United States to be running Venezuela?
Well, I explained to you what our goals are and how we're going to use the leverage to make it happen. As far as what our legal authority is on the quarantine, I'm very simple. We have court orders. These are sanctioned boats, and we get orders from courts to go after and seize these sanctions. So that's, I don't know, is a court not illegal?
See, it's amazing how you can have two different narratives. What we see is a goofy on the screen who has no plan for Venezuela whatsoever. If you think it's okay to just go get the oil and don't make no regime change, don't change nothing for the people, we're going to wait and see what's going on, we're going to leave all the same players in order, then you probably one of those MAGA goofies. Because only a MAGA goofy would not even think beyond their nose. No, y'all think because it's just getting the oil. We that big bad motherfucker, we went and got that oil without no plan whatsoever for those damn people over there. Whatsoever. This is the same shit we do every time we go into another country. Okay? You think you're going to change something and you end up messing it up. Which is why we should have left those people to do whatever they needed to do on their own, overthrown their own government, did what they needed to do on their own time. But it's okay because we got the oil. It's okay because we come out with the oil. And then the president, our president, puts the money in an offshore account where can't nobody touch it. And it's okay with y'all. That's okay with y'all. This is how the goofy MAGA people think.
Legal authority?
So is the United States running Venezuela right now?
Well, I've explained once again, I'll do it one more time. What we are running is the direction that this is going to move moving forward. And that is we have leverage.
See, this is the moment when the entire justification for the Trump administration's actions start to break down. Not emotionally, but structurally. Because once you reach the point where no one can clearly answer who is actually running the country, running Venezuela, you are no longer talking about liberation for any damn people. You're talking about suspending that sovereignty. Liberation should have a direction. It has an endpoint. It has a goal. It returns power to the people of the country in question. What we are saying instead is something far more bogus. Power has been removed from one place, but it has not been handed back to the people. It's being held by the same damn people. And the only thing you did was come in there and get the oil. And that matters more than any damn speech about democracy. So sovereignty is unclear. The interim president is the same as Maduro, Black America. If you don't know what you're talking about, stop talking. She is the same as Maduro. The same. No, y'all goofy asses don't care. Because I keep explaining to you, the vice president is the same as Maduro. She's just as cutthroat and ruthless as him. That's wild. Y'all goofy. I can't explain that to you. You goofy. What difference would it have made to leave Maduro in place if you're going to keep the same people that are doing the same repression as he did? What would be the point in taking him out of there? Just dumb. Just dumb.
This leverage we are using and we intend to use, we started using already. You can see where they are running out of storage capacity. In a few weeks, they're going to have to start pumping oil unless they make changes. And that leverage that we have with the armada of boats that are currently positioned allow us to seize any sanctioned boats coming into or out of Venezuela, loaded with oil or on its way in to pick up oil, and we can pick and choose which ones we go after. We have court orders for each one. That will continue to be in place until the people who have control over the levers of power in that country make changes that are not just in the interest of the people of Venezuela, but are in the interest of the United States and the things that we care about. That's what
When
we
the
intend
president
to
was
do.
asked
The
yesterday,
legal authority is the court orders that we have.
Here is Champagne Pete.
Nicolas Maduro had his chance, just like Iran had their chance, until they didn't and until he didn't. He effed around and he found out.
Of course, Kristi Noem.
Following up on a point you made, Madam Secretary, to clarify, is it possible that you might eventually deport Maduro overseas elsewhere once he faces trial here in the U.S.?
I think we need to see and let the process play out. But in many of these countries, what we're doing is bringing people to justice for the crimes that they've committed here in the United States. And then if there's a legitimate government in another country that wants them to come and pay for their crimes in their country, we'll work with them. Right now, we don't have that in Venezuela. President Trump has talked about bringing stability to Venezuela and working with individuals there who really want to see it be successful.
How are the people who have been repressing these people all this time going to be the people that need to stay in power? I just explained to you all that there was an election and people overwhelmingly voted for that person. So why is it that they didn't just take all of the people that have been doing the bullshit to the Venezuelan people out and let that person who got elected come in? Why didn't the Trump administration do that? As a matter of fact, why didn't they get that chick who gave him the Nobel Peace Prize? Why didn't they get her to come in and then settle on some free and fair elections? Let her do something about elections and see who they would bring in. Get rid of the people and let them come in and do the stabilization. But they haven't any plans for that. They don't care. Okay, it's all about the oil. It's always been about the oil. Okay, always. You're not seeing any kind of humanitarian assistance. It's pressure through courts, through oil flow, through enforcement mechanisms. Nobody is trying to expand liberation all across Venezuela, including the Trump administration. It's all about the oil. They wanted to get the oil, so they got the oil. The liberation was just, it wasn't even a liberation. It's not even a liberation. Okay. And they saying what makes Venezuela particularly dangerous is if we go in, it's going to be a long, long war. It's being framed as something we could just go in and we could just figure some stuff out. We ain't got to be there for long. We're just going to be monitoring shit. If you you think this is the only oil that Donald Trump is going to try to get from Venezuela, then that would mean that we're going to have to occupy some resource. We're going to put some resources over there. We're going to have to. We're just going to have to. Okay. This rarely bodes well for the people that live in Venezuela. It doesn't bode well for the people who live in Venezuela. Okay. The confirmation that they went and got the oil and did everything they had to do with the oil first, that's the confirmation that this was never about freeing the Venezuelans, and it was damn sure never about stopping these people from getting drugs, because they weren't getting that many drugs to the United States in the first place. It comes all through Mexico. Definitely wasn't through Venezuela. If freedom had been the goal, the end state would have been clear. There is no end game. Instead, the end game is vague, open-ended, contingent upon U.S. interests being satisfied. Okay, if you don't give us this X, Y, and Z, we ain't helping y'all. If you don't give us X, Y, and Z, we not helping none of y'all. And that brings us back to the core truth of this whole presentation. The Trump administration didn't create a path to Venezuelan self-determination or freedom at all. It created a system of leverage for themselves. And leverage, by definition, exists to benefit the party that holds it, not the people underneath it. This is not how freedom looks for these people. This is not how freedom is going to go for the Venezuelan people. The Venezuelan people, we're going to forget. Oh, no, we're going to forget all about them Venezuelan people. Well, they don't give a fuck about them Venezuelan people. We're going to forget all about them in about 5 months. We're going to forget all about these Venezuelan people. They're still going to be under the strict regime that they had from the beginning. Only thing they wanted to do is get rid of Maduro. They wanted to get rid of Maduro. They wanted to send a message to the people that are running Venezuela. We'll come snatch your ass up if you don't give us this oil, if you don't give us these resources. They only was sending a message to those people. They wasn't sending them. They wasn't saying they was finna free you Venezuelan people. This is wild. But I feel bad for the Venezuelan people. I do, because I know they never intended to free them. They never intended to do anything to them, for them.
But we'll continue to do what we've been doing for the last 12 months under President Trump's leadership, and that's get the criminals off of our streets, bring these terrorists like Tren de Aragua and Maduro to justice, and make sure that we're focusing back on America first.
This raises the most interesting question. ICE has said they can go anywhere. Do they intend to break out Maduro from the Brooklyn jail and ship him to the El Salvadoran CICOT, where no doubt Barry Weiss will be waiting to interview him? Here's the deal. The United States in Vietnam, in Iraq, and now in Venezuela has a great track record of starting wars and being quite convinced that we're going to win and we're going to achieve our aims. But it never quite works out that way. Not because of the valor of the American soldier, but because of the incompetence of the American politician. And there is no politician more venal, more malignant, more dishonest than Donald Trump, who is unfit at a profound level to order the American military into harm's way. He has the legal authority to put them in harm's way, but he doesn't have the constitutional authority to start wars. The United States is a republic, and our eunuch Congress has allowed this travesty to go on and on and on and on and on and on for many, many years, until we have reached the place where the President of the United States, operating like a gangster, has asserted he has the power to kidnap anyone, anywhere, and then to run their countries, only to be refuted, of course, by little Marco within a few hours' time. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning. I'm
Steve Schmidt, the only Republican that I will listen to anytime he posts a video, because he's the smartest man in the room, bar none, bar anybody in Washington, period. So we understand exactly what the hell happened with the oil. The president sent that oil overseas. Hold on. I forgot. Why the hell is my shit going nuts? Uno momento, por favor. Here we go. Give me a momento. Uh-oh. Okay. Hold on. I need to get to my point. We'll start here. Fuck it.
This new type of model that they will work with us. They do not have their resources. Now they know that we're going to go into this recovery, and that somehow they are going to definitely participate and work with the American forces. They know better. And like I said, this is impressive what's happening, because we have not seen this before in the 250 years of history. And Diosdado, I repeat, is definitely someone who was indicted. And one of the sources, I have some sources that say that we were not able to
extracting a leader almost just a.
All right, hold on.
I don't want my taxes to pay for invading foreign countries under false premises, kidnapping presidents, to steal their natural resources, and threatening to do it to more countries, claiming that for somehow sovereign nations belong to us or something's owed to us. I don't want my taxes to pay for ICE, to masked thugs to roam our streets and terrorize our communities and rip families apart. We should be taking care of each other. We should be minding each other. We should be housing the homeless. We shouldn't be, throwing people to the ground. Which brings me to Renee Nicole Good, murdered in front of her fellow citizens in Minneapolis, murdered in the streets. And no matter what narrative this administration is trying to sell us, We can see the videos. These people who are trying to tell us not to believe what we see. It is so horrific. I don't understand how you can claim that she was ramming their cars or that she was attacking them. There's nothing to suggest that. And it's mind-boggling, and it's deeply upsetting to me and to so many people, and we can't just let it slide.
We're here to ensure that you are going to be able to move all of this oil all around the world at the best price possible so that the influence that you have over the Venezuelans will ensure that you get what you want.
Thank you. Good point.
1 week ago, we invaded Venezuela, and already Donald Trump's little nation-building adventure has collapsed into chaos. Apparently now, the American embassy in Caracas has warned all Americans to get out of Venezuela as fast as possible. Apparently there are armed militias setting up checkpoints on the roads, searching cars for proof of U.S. citizenship, or for that matter, alignment with the U.S. in any way. But not only that, Donald Trump had a big meeting with U.S. oil companies, in fact, international oil companies too, and said, okay, here you go, Venezuela, the oil fields, biggest oil fields in the world. Go at them, boys. And they all said, no, thank you. We don't want that oil. And apparently, in part, this is because it's what's called very heavy crude, and it's difficult to extract and expensive to process. And with oil hanging at $60 a barrel, there's no money to be made. But more importantly, I can't imagine that any major multinational oil corporation is going to go into Venezuela and start pumping their oil. They are a founding member of OPEC, and every other OPEC nation is not going to take too kindly to that. But not only that, the folks who are running Venezuela right now are exactly the same people that ran it under Maduro. Nothing else has changed except that one man is gone. Lots of innocent people have already died in Venezuela, and my only hope is that Mr. No War President wakes up real fast, pulls all of our troops and all of our citizens out of Venezuela before more people get hurt, a lot more people.
We have a very long history in Venezuela. In fact, we first got into Venezuela back in 1940s. We've had our assets seized there twice, and so you can imagine to re-enter a third time would require some pretty significant changes from what we've historically seen here and what is currently the state. If we look at the legal and commercial constructs and frameworks in place today in Venezuela, today it's uninvestable. And so significant changes have to be made to those commercial frameworks, the legal system. There has to be durable investment protections, and there has to be a change to the hydrocarbon laws in the country. We're confident that with this administration and President Trump working hand in hand with the Venezuelan government, that those changes can be put in place.
Yesterday, you accepted Maria Machado's Nobel Prize medal. What do you intend to do with it, and why would you want someone else's Nobel Prize?
Well, she offered it to me. I thought it was very nice. She said, you know, you've ended 8 wars, and nobody deserves this prize more than in history than you do. And I thought it was a very nice gesture. And by the way, I think she's a very fine woman, and we'll be talking again.
President Trump may keep oil giant Exxon out of deals in Venezuela after a major meeting in the White House. Their CEO refused to commit to investing in the South American nation, stating that Venezuela was, quote, uninvestable right now.
I didn't like Exxon's response. You know, we have so many that want, and I'd probably be inclined to keep Exxon out. I didn't like their response. They're playing too cute.
I was at the meeting Friday where Darren Woods explained why he didn't feel comfortable investing right now.
To re-enter a third time would require some pretty significant changes from what we've historically.
Static. They felt like there was hope once again for their country. This is Iraq now. And I'll take it a step further. There has never been an instance in history where the USA invades a country and occupies a country, and the quality of life improves for the average citizen of said country. Just look at Syria, Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan. I can go on. Vietnam. The US has already taken control of Venezuela's oil. Oil is the real reason why the United States invaded Venezuela. Let's not kid ourselves. And the only people who are going to benefit from this are billionaires and oil companies, not US citizens, let alone Venezuelan citizens. So if you're Venezuelan or you live in Venezuela or you know somebody who lives in Venezuela, enjoy this moment of peace, because what is coming is way worse than Maduro. You're going to wish you still had Maduro. But anyways, let me know what you guys think.
So apparently, because numbnuts didn't have a plan on how to deal with the aftermath of the Venezuelan situation, the Maduro regime is still in power, and now the U.S. State Department has issued warnings to anybody, any American citizen who is in Venezuela, to get out. You warn your people now. Did you not think that there wouldn't be Americans in Venezuela at the time that you did this bullshit? Evidently, Americans are being targeted by local militias. They have set up roadblocks and are looking for evidence of U.S. citizenship. They are evidently arresting Americans, taking them somewhere to do God knows what to them, all because numbnuts didn't have a plan.
Of course he didn't have a plan. So now Americans are in danger in Venezuela. Hey, you passport bros, you better get your ass up out of there. Well, they coming for you. They coming for Americans. You passport bros better get up out of there. They don't have no intention and no plan. So now we got American lives in danger. And as the man was saying, I didn't want my money, my taxpayer money, to go for this shit. My taxpayer money went for this kind of bullshit. I didn't want my taxpayer money to go for this. It's crazy.
Didn't think to get his people out of there. And now Americans are at high risk in Venezuela. What did you think was going to happen?
So Trump, in his infinite wisdom of thinking that everybody's only motivation is money, he's even being curbed by people whose sole motivation is money.
Yeah.
But the self-preservation of my people being sent over there has in some ways trumped that desire to get oil from Venezuela. But
now, what other companies? The one that I saw was Exxon. I saw that, Trump did say that he was probably going to not include Exxon. Because Exxon, I don't know if they were first or the loudest, but they did voice their concerns about the attempt to extract the oil from Venezuela. What other companies was it?
So there was not a specific list.
Trump's Venezuela invasion is already becoming a disaster. I'm not going to talk about the fact that American companies don't want to invest in Venezuela, which is already a major issue for Trump. I'm actually going to talk about the colectivos and the crackdown on Venezuelan society. Because right now there are armed gangs in Venezuela who are hunting down Trump supporters and people who celebrated the overthrow of the Venezuelan government. Whatever control Trump
Now, why would they do that?
in Venezuela,
Now, why would they have people hunting down the people that supported Donald Trump? They're hunting down the people who supported Donald Trump because Donald Trump didn't get rid of the old regime. And so the old regime is going to get back in charge. And we might just be back in the same situation. Again, a couple months later, we never know. They never follow through on bullshit like this.
it never made sense, right? They never secured anything. They never put any troops on the ground. They simply took a leader and they said, okay, Venezuela.
They didn't put no troops on the ground? There ain't no troops on the ground to stabilize the country after they blew it up? They never put troops on the ground? Wow.
You're going to do what we tell you. No, they're not. They're not going to do that. They put Maduro's vice president in power, whose father was unalived by the CIA, which means she's probably going to be more pro-Chavista than Maduro. So yeah, this is not going well for the colonialists.
So today, the president had nearly 24 of the biggest oil executives at the White House to talk about, guess what? The opportunity that he sees ahead in Venezuela for these massive companies, and he wants them to make massive investments.
The plan is for them to spend, meaning our giant oil companies will be spending at least $100 billion of their money, not the government's money. They don't need government money. But they need government protection and need government security that when they spend all this money, it's going to be there so they get their money back and make a very nice return. The plan is for them to spend at least $100 billion to rebuild the capacity and the infrastructure necessary.
While there was a lot of talk about a lot of opportunity in Venezuela, the CEO of the largest company, he threw some cold water on it in his comments.
In particular, we have a very long history in Venezuela. In fact, we first got into
Yeah, we heard that.
legal and commercial
Rand Paul and Lisa Murkowski joined Democrats in voting for this. The vote was 50-50, and it came down to J.D. Vance being the tie-breaking vote, making it 51-50 to kill this War Powers resolution. And this is why it's more important than ever for Democrats to take back both the House and the Senate in the midterms to hold this president in check with his war powers. Let me know what you think about this in the comments.
Absolutely. We working on it because we understand that the Republicans stand for nothing. We understand that they stand for nothing. They don't want to stop this president. We're hoping, but I'm with Steve Schmidt. I'm with him. He said the only way to stop President Trump is at the end of this month. At the end of this month. That's the only way to stop this president. He says, between now and the midterms, no way to stop the president. Seriously, unless it's at the end of this month. So, because I don't have faith in the American goofy ass people. I don't have faith in them. They forget, they get amnesia, they get into that MAGA goofy syndrome and just don't get none of that. They just voted down the war resolution to stop Trump from going back into Venezuela. They just shut that shit down. Some of the Republicans voted with the Democrats. Some of the Republicans did, but not enough. They had J.D. Vance come in there and break the tie and say, no, we ain't finna stop Trump. Trump gonna get up out of there. But Trump is gonna be emboldened. Let's see how bold Trump is gonna be to go into Greenland. Our understanding is if Trump decides to go into Greenland, they're going to stop him right there. So let's see if they stop him, actually. But see, I don't put any stock in the Republican Party because they don't stand for anything. And Trump is going to invade Greenland. And let's see if the Republicans, like they said they were going to do, will stop him. Because a lot of Republicans have said if he tries to go into Greenland, they're going to impeach him. But let's see. Let's see.
Like, share, spread the word, follow, subscribe, and I'll see you back here for the 411.
One day after giving President Trump her Nobel Peace Prize, Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Machado came here to the Heritage Foundation and told reporters that she has no doubt that President Trump supports democracy and the mandate of the people of Venezuela. That is despite President Trump refusing to back Machado as the next leader of Venezuela, saying he doesn't believe she has the support or the respect within Venezuela to lead the country. That's despite her party winning the last election, but blocked from taking power by the Maduro regime. Now, instead, President Trump has embraced Delcy Rodriguez, who is Maduro's vice president and is now...
She went all the way. That lady went all the way to the White House and gave Donald Trump her Nobel Peace Prize. Ain't got his name on it, got her name on it. He just holding it close. And he still didn't tell her, I'm going to let you decide the fate of Venezuela. I'm going to help you overthrow the government. I'm going to help you do what you got to do. She came all that way to give that president that damn Nobel Peace Prize. And he said, go take a flying leap, lady. I ain't letting you do jack. And he left this goon in the green in charge. She is in charge. she is Maduro's second in command. So everybody in that Maduro regime is still there doing their thing. So you Venezuelans just sit your ass down and still keep starving, because that's what's going to happen.
The acting president, Trump has called her a terrific person who has been very good. And Machado said here today that Venezuela is going to be free, and she said it's going to be achieved with the support of the United States and President Trump. But the White House says that President Trump hopes that Venezuela will have elections one day, but that Trump doesn't believe the country is ready yet. And it's unclear what Machado walked away from that White House meeting after giving President Trump her Nobel Peace Prize, which the Nobel Institute says cannot be transferred, shared, or revoked.
Let me tell you about the dumbest geopolitical move of this administration. The United States seized Venezuela, captured Maduro, and promised Americans 300 billion barrels of oil, cheap gas, and energy independence. And guess what? Not a single major oil company wants to touch it. Not Exxon, not Chevron, not Shell. Meanwhile, while we were in Caracas, China locked down 90% of the world's rare earth supply. This is how Trump fumbled the resource war of the century. Trump called it the deal of the century. But here's the reality they didn't tell you. Venezuela's oil infrastructure is obliterated. Years of sanctions turned it into a graveyard. The oil itself is some of the worst in the world. Thick, heavy tar that requires special refineries we don't have. The pitch to oil companies wasn't print money. It was spend hundreds of billions rebuilding from scratch in a war zone for low-grade oil that sells at a discount. Exxon's CEO told Trump it's uninvestable. They'd need permanent U.S. troops guarding the fields, legal guarantees against nationalization, and massive subsidies. Even then, they said no. And get this, the administration immediately lifted the very sanctions on Venezuelan oil they said were about human rights. Turns out, sanctions were never about morals. They were a lever. And once we control the oil, the lever disappears. The world sees this as pure resource imperialism. While we played soldier, China played economist. They spent decades locking down the resources that actually matter. Rare earths, lithium, cobalt, silver, not with invasions, but with patient investment in refining. China now controls 90% of refined rare earth supply. These minerals aren't just for phones. They're in every F-35 jet, every electric car, every solar panel. They've already weaponized this, cutting off Japan in a dispute. Imagine that leverage against the US. Recently, they restricted silver exports. Silver is critical for solar panels and EVs. China isn't just controlling supply. They're holding a kill switch for Western manufacturing. This shows the fundamental difference in strategy. America, short-term, military-driven, reactive. Invade, seize, hope corporations follow. Plan in election cycles. China, long-term, economic-driven, strategic. Build supply chains, create dependencies, become indispensable. Plan in decades. China didn't win by being smarter. They won by being more patient. They saw oil was the past. The minerals for the green and digital future are everything. So now, America is stuck. We occupy a country whose oil we can't use. To compete with China, we'd need to spend trillions we don't have to rebuild industries they spent 30 years perfecting. That money comes from debt and printing, making inflation worse. Meanwhile, China uses its $3 trillion reserves to tighten its grip. We're decoupling, and we're not ready. We fought wars for oil while they built the supply chains for the 21st century. Trump's Venezuela gamble was supposed to project power. Instead, it exposed our weakness. You don't win resource wars with regime change anymore. You win them with supply chains. So ask yourself, who has more power? The country that invaded for useless oil, or the country that controls the minerals in your phone, your car, and your weapons? I think you know the answer, and if that scares you, it should. The first step to fixing a problem is admitting we have one. So what does this all mean for you? It means the ground is shifting beneath our feet. The era where America could simply muscle its way to resources is over. The real currency of power is no longer just the barrel of oil. It's the supply chain. While Washington celebrated a hollow victory in Caracas, Beijing secured the building blocks of the next century. Our grand, theatrical gesture has left us with an expensive occupation and a handful of tar. Their quiet, patient strategy has given them control over the elements that power everything from your smartphone to the national grid. This isn't about partisan politics. It's about a fundamental failure of long-term vision. We're stuck in a 20th century playbook of tanks and coups, while our primary competitor is mastering the 21st century game of economic statecraft and industrial policy. The wake-up call isn't coming. It's already here. ringing in the form of controlled minerals and restricted exports. The question now is whether we'll finally start listening, or if we'll keep chasing the next flashy, useless headline while the foundation of our future is shipped overseas.
So this is where we at with Venezuela. We still have a problem with Venezuela. They do not want to put boots on the ground in Venezuela. They don't have boots on the ground. They still have that goofy regime. They still have the same people in power. They still have the same people in power. And those people are now cracking down on U.S. citizens and cracking down on people who helped take Maduro out of the country. So what is our country going to do? We have to go back in there with boots on the ground. I guess we're going to have to. So are we willing to occupy Venezuela for a long, long time? We don't know. Okay. We don't know whether we can occupy it for a long, long time. I guess we could, but nobody expected to do that. The only thing they thought about was getting the oil and getting leverage. And their leverage was to steal Maduro. Okay. Why not just clear the whole deck? Clear the whole deck and then put people in there that would sell you the oil. Give you those first barrels of oil. No, they took the oil. They already took what they took. The world ain't going to allow us to just take oil out of that country. They call themselves going back to get the money that was owed to them. Okay, fine and dandy. You went and got the money that was owed to you. But they're not going to allow Venezuela to continue to give us oil for free or give us this for free. That's wild. I swear to God, I don't know whether some of y'all be smoking something or what. Because a lot of y'all be talking nonsense straight out your ass. Let's take the oil. We're going to take it. It's ours. No, it's not yours. It's theirs. It's theirs. Okay? They have to decide what they need to do with their country. The whole point was to give those people a shot. Give those people a shot of controlling their own country. And the United States didn't give them their own shot. Now they back under the same regime, probably more brutal than ever before, because they're trying to stifle down insurrectionists, as they call them, or stifle down people who are going against the current regime, because the current regime ain't changing. Okay, so what do? We just deal with it. And on top of the fact that Trump just put oil in Qatar, or put the money in Qatar into I don't know what he put it into. I don't know what he did with that money. We don't know what he did with that $500 million in barrels in oil. We don't know what the hell happened to that. Or the money. That money ain't going to the United States. That's for damn sure. We ain't seeing none of that money. Poor people ain't seeing jack shit. It'll probably go straight to the rich people and in Donald Trump's pocket, but it damn sure ain't going to us. That's why it's over there in Qatar. So there won't be so many eyes on it. Won't be so many eyes on that 500 million billion. That's a lot of goddamn money. Okay. America, she can do whatever America wants her to do. Yes. But she still ain't doing no more. See, this is what you don't understand, Black America. You keep talking. The only thing she's doing is making sure they have access to the oil. She's not doing anything for the people. They're not giving the money back, Black America. That money belongs to the United States. It's stolen. It ain't ours anymore. It ain't theirs anymore. They don't have no say in money. That woman that's in charge is just allowing the United States to deal with the oil. They're not giving them directives about the country. That's the whole point. They're not giving them any directives about the country, so they don't give a damn. Okay? The money does belong to the United States. Didn't you hear Donald Trump say, you owe us money, and we're going to take this $500 billion because you owe us money? Didn't you hear that? Do you be listening to TV? Do you be listening to what he's saying? That's why he took it, because it's theirs. Because Maduro owed other monies. Maduro owed other monies to other parties, and Donald Trump took that money and put it offshore, so wouldn't nobody get that money except oil executives and himself. That's it. Ain't nobody getting that damn money except him and his boys. That ain't no damn Venezuela money. Not no more. And the only reason why that lady stayed in charge is because she knew her ass would be kidnapped. That's the whole point. They kidnapped Maduro because they could. Why do you think they didn't go in and get the rest of them? They could have went and got the rest of them, but they didn't. Why didn't they go get the rest of the other people that were in charge, the bad people, and stifle that down? We could have overran that country for real, for real. Why didn't they overrun the country? Wild, just wild, just wild. That's the only reason why they went in for the oil. And the people be damned. That's the way they look at it. Y'all hit that like, share, and subscribe button, please, and thank you. No. You don't need to explain to me. I understand the oil industry just fine. I understand it just fine. We make a lot of oil. We just make the light kind of oil. We make more oil than anybody else. But we make the light kind. Okay? You don't leave the same figurehead in charge that's brutal. Black America. They left the people. The point is, it doesn't matter who they leave in charge. They did not care about the people. That's what I'm saying to you. They don't care about the people. That's what I'm saying to you. Be damn about anything else. I'm saying, people keep saying it's to free the Venezuelan people. No, it wasn't. They don't give a damn about those people. Otherwise, they would have changed the regime. They didn't change the regime because they don't care about the people. They don't care about the people. They care about the oil. They care about the resources. That's all they care about. Otherwise, they would have changed the regime. They would have changed the people that were in charge, but they didn't. So they don't care. You keep saying they leave the people in charge. They going to leave the same people in charge for what? Of course, she's going to do what they tell her to do, but she's not going to change anything for the people. That is what I'm saying to you. I'm not arguing with you about who they left in charge. I just said she's just as brutal as Maduro. Jesus. Of course, and she's going to continue to brutalize the people, which is what I'm saying to you. Y'all hit the like, share, and subscribe button. We have content every day. Please come back. Please come back. Hit the like button. We're going to have more content later on. You know I'm going to be back. Of course I'm going to be back. I don't know what with, but I'll be back. I'll be back. I appreciate y'all. Hit the like, share, and subscribe.